Here we have a little project that's going to be using our mountain fold cards. These are called mountain folds because if you look at the side, they look like a little range of mountains, a tall mountain and a smaller mountain. This gives you a lovely distance between the front of the card and the back of the card. So from the front panel here to the back panel is about 1.25 inches or 3 centimetres. It's going to be quick and simple to make, and it's very easy to change by changing the background paper or maybe using glitterboard or the way you decorate the tree. It makes it a very easy card to change up. The items we're going to need are our laser cut deer. These are easier to see on the back, in fact, because you can just see the outline of them. This is LCG02, and you'll get 4 deer on each sheet. This is a background layer, and then you have a foreground layer, and they overlay so that the dark shows through all the holes. A scrapbook page, which is SR355, which gives us the nice trees and the snowy foreground. Some peel-off stickers. I've used some little stars on this. This is ZL175, and then we've got some wording, Merry Christmas, which is XL730. This is the card itself, and this is CC01U, and you'll see it comes with the tree already cut and the score lines ready to use. And just one more thing you'll need is some gold thread to decorate the tree. Okay, to make this card, you can fold this either with, you have to be a bit careful with the folding in the first place because you don't want to fold the base of the tree here. So you can fold this way, which will mean that your tree is going to stand on the left hand side of the card, or if you turn it over, you can fold the card the other way. Sorry, now I've pushed it through, it's a little trickier. And then your tree, if you fold it that way, your tree will be on the right, as we did in the first sample. So, and we would fold it here, taking care not to fold the tree. And then we have this fold going backwards on itself. Sorry, folded that one the wrong way. And that means that we then have our mountain fold a bit like that. I'll show you them on the shelf later and you'll see how lovely that works. To start with, we want to cut our piece of paper to the right width. So using the cutting mat, that's 175 wide. So we'll place the paper on the cutting mat. If we place it squarely on the grid, then I can use the cutting mat to measure. I think it always needs a little bit of care at this stage, because once you've trimmed it you can't do anything else. Then we're going to trim off the bottom edge. We don't want this wording here. Again, using the grid on the cutting mat to make sure that everything stays tidy and square. And then I want to cut a piece that's deep enough to cover here, which is 5 centimetres. I actually want to make it a little larger, so that's 5 centimetres. I will add another 5mm on. We're going to place our card along our strip of paper, and we want to fold it so that we're lining up the edge here to make sure we're on the page and that we're beyond the bottom. That's why we cut it a little wider. Then I'm going to draw along the top edge . And using scissors, we're going to trim inside this line. We don't want the pencil line left on because sometimes the glue can smear it and then you'll end up with a grey line at the top of your card. Where this gap is, we're going to go straight across. That's where the tree trunk was, and we want to cover over the tree trunk. Then we should have a piece that matches quite nicely. We will have to trim off the base, but that's okay. For this, I prefer to use glue. It's more immediate and it gives you a little bit of wriggle room. So, a piece of glue, and I use a little piece of scrap card to just spread the glue over the piece. Then we're lining up the top edge and the sides. There we go. And then we'll give it a nice firm press. Now we will trim up to the card edge here. Remove the excess. If we place it face down on the cutting mat, we can then place the knife against the edge of the card. There we are. Now from our other strip, we want to cover this top portion of card, and I also take it down over the hole here. So if we place it on as it is, the trees will come to here. I think I would lose a little bit off the top of the trees to gain a little bit in the foreground, like that. So now if we mark where we want to trim this piece, we've already got the width settled because we trimmed it at the start. Keeping it square by lining it up on the grid on the cutting mat. That portion is unused. And then this should fit across here and go past the fold as well. So that works. We need to be careful not to get glue on this part inside the tree aperture, but I only want to glue up to the fold. So we're going along there. So around the tree is quite important. And again, we don't want it on this piece because this piece is the front of the card. We'll give it a little spread. And then we're adding our piece of background to the card. And then I fold the paper and the card at once. You have to kind of hold it nicely against the card and give it a crease. I find that's the way that works best for me. It sticks it nicely to this portion, and if you go straight over the fold, you need a bit of extra paper to go into the dip of the fold almost. And now we're going to glue this part, again around the tree, around the edges is important, and then some smears across the main card. And spread again. I stick mine by pressing onto it in that way, when the paper is stuck, it's stuck in the position that is most comfortable really for the paper and the card. Okay. Now you can cut the top of the paper at the fold, but I prefer to go down the back a very small way. So for this, it's double-sided tape along the edge of the paper. Press the tape down nicely. Remove the backing. So if we hold it firmly now, we can fold the card over and press the paper on. And that gives you a nice top line instead of a gappy top line. You've got a nice top line, and the back doesn't notice. I don't think anybody's really looking at the back. So there's your basic card, ready to decorate. So each deer has a dark back and a light front, and we're going to want our deer facing towards the tree. So you need to be a little careful around the antlers. And then we want a matching back. Again, taking a bit of care around the antlers. These will layer up a bit like that, so you'll see you get a little bit of shadow of the dark showing through. And at this stage, if you'd like a female deer, you can cut off the antlers and not use those at all. So you can choose. I begin with, on the bottom of all of the feet, a little bit of glue. This can go stringy and we don't want the strings to spoil it. And we're going to place this behind the heel, glued on by the feet. So that's why I put it right down the bottom. That means that we can now overlay the top one, and the front 2 feet will be in front of the snow and the back feet will be behind the snow, and it helps it sit onto the card nicely. You can do this with double-sided pads if you want a bit of extra depth. That's up to you. I'm going to do this one with glue. We don't need a lot of glue, just a dab here and there. I'd stay away from the holes. You don't want glue showing through the holes on the back. And of course the antlers don't overlay, so you don't need any glue on the antlers. And now we're matching the top of the head and the nose. There we go, tip of the tail. And there's your deer. Okay. For the back, I've used cotton, a gold thread, to decorate the tree. And for this, I've placed a little bit of double-sided tape onto the tree like that. Now, remove the backing, but save the backing. We're going to place the thread onto the tape like that, and then press the backing over the top again. And that gives you quite an invisible, I mean, if you look you can see it, but if you received the card and glanced at it you wouldn't even notice that. So then we're wrapping the thread around the tree. We want to pull it a little tight, but not massively tight. Our stars are going to hold it in place. And then we're going to come across to the deer. But at this point, we'll add a little more tape. Again, removing the backing, but saving it so that we can put it back down again. And then we can press it on. These little bags don't matter, and it's better than having it far too tight. Then we're going to place the stars on, which will stick it down. So next we're going to do similar with the tape on the back of the deer. Okay, onto the back of the deer's face. Removing but not quite removing. Then we're going to take the tape across to here. I don't think we want it totally tight, so we'll do it a bit loose. And I'm going to take it down as well. We don't want it coming down at quite the same point, so we'll take it down a little lower and press the tape backing back onto the tape. That saves this being sticky. Otherwise, when you send the card, the front will stick to the back. Okay, and then this will trail down and into the corner. So now we're going to add some stars. I find the littlest stars are best for this, and using a pokey tool makes them easy to pick up. I've used up all the little ones there. So first of all we're going to start with the tail end here, and using the star we can actually hold the thread in place. So we can sort of shape and stick what would be the wire into place. You want to fairly evenly space these, although I don't think it's critical spacing. Not convinced we need to measure. And then trim the end to the edge of the card. For this bit that is between up in the air, I use 2 stickers. So we start with one, and if you place it on the back of the wire, then you can place another one directly over the top. And that saves it from being sticky to the touch and sticking to the back of the card. There we go. And then it's just placing the stars onto the wire on the tree. Oh, that's a bigger one. And as you can see, this holds the wire to the tree as well. Saves messing about with little bits of glue. That one's actually a little larger, so I'm going to take it off again. There we go. On these sheets, you'll find we've got a few little shapes crammed in the holes that might be useful. So I'm going to take the largest star, and using the dark one because it will give us contrast, I will take one of these stars. This will be a little smaller, and that means that I can overlay it onto the glitter board. And then you have the nice dark background. So we'll go for a little bit of glue on the top of our tree. And then pop the star on top of that. The only thing to add now is wording. The actual wording's not very important. I've picked this modern looking one that goes with the style. Take off that piece. I tend to be a little careful pulling these, or you can stretch them and then you've got to get them back into shape before you can get them onto the card, and it just makes it a little harder. Gone a little low with that. So there you have it. It looks quite pretty and is quite quick and simple to make. And as I'll show you now, we can do quite a few different ideas. But I'll show you on the shelf so you can see what they look like stood up. So here's the card we've just made actually stood on the shelf, and you'll see that the front of it dangles over the edge of the shelf really quite nicely, and how lovely the string of lights pulled between the deer and the tree look. I like the difference this one makes just simply by changing a few simple elements. So you've got essentially the same card, but it looks so very different. This uses the dark snow sky background paper, and I've cut the paper off at the top of the hill. So this is actually just the plain card hill here, and you'll see it's folded the opposite way so the tree is on the left. The deer is holding a bauble, simply adding the cotton that we used for the wire in the previous card to give the deer something to hang. And then the baubles on the tree are actually from the laser cut sheet, and similarly the star on the top of the tree as well. The top of the sky I've added some white peel-off stickers and a few little extra flakes of snow just to finish that off. At the front I've used just a strip of the champagne glitter card to tie in with the deer and edged it with some of the dark chocolate. The stars along the band are from the laser cut sheet again, and you'll find the peel-off sticker is a gold, but I didn't quite like it gold, so I've covered it with a dark brown pen to tone in with the glitter board. This one is my last example, again using the tree on the left. This one uses our Sparkle Snowflake Sky, which I think is really quite pretty. The front of the hill is covered with white glitter board, which gives it a lovely soft sparkle. Then the baubles are paper punched using a normal office punch from red glitter board, and I've added the same gold thread to make the wires to hang the baubles from. The tree is decorated with our loopy borders. I've always loved this border, it makes nice fairy lights to my mind, nice curls of wire, and then I've coloured all of the loops with a red liquid pearl paint, which just gives you the bulb effect. So as you can see, 3 quite different cards using one simple idea, just changing a few little bits here and there makes all the difference. Hope you like them.